December, wait a minute, figure it out now. Today is Friday, June the 7th, June the 6th, 2021 in the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the seventh millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on livinginblack.com. Woo, that was harried. You can tell when I'm coming on the air and I am thinking about everything and everything and everything, but I am not thinking about what I am saying. I should just write it down. I've said it for 20 something years. Today, we've got a very important show. The show today will determine the future. It will determine the future for all times, for everyone on the planet. Let's go into today's topic. The theme today is Pan-Africanism as a competitive force for the future. Pan-Africanism as a force for competing for the world for the future. The ball is in our hands at this point, period. I would say we can't mess it up, but I'd have to weigh that against the record. We have allowed it to be messed up, whether it's our fault or someone else's fault. I'm not here to assign blame, and I have no time for blaming the other. But we have made very poor collective decisions, including the collective decision to stop thinking collectively. That's where Pan-Africanism comes in as a solution. Pan-Africanism is a collection of African thought from around the world, and ultimately, Pan-Africanism is uncompromisable. It has been established by a council of ancestors. Pan-Africanism or perish. Today on LIV Radio, we consider Pan-Africanism as a vehicle to compete in the world of the future. We will need to battle the overt and covert forces of globalism, warmongering, capitalism, corporatism, the billionaire class, and others. We must develop the science of game theory. We must develop the science of game theory to its ultimate use. For more than 500 years, we have remained victims of forces that played the game better than us, better than we knew how to play the game. For more than 500 years, we have been victim to forces that played the game better than we did. Now, we have an opportunity to reverse this and reclaim our natural momentum. Will you be joining this contest? That is the theme for today's conversation. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to come out of this introduction to the theme, and I am going to go into the PayPal, not the PayPal. I'm going to go into the PowerPoint. I knew it had two P's in it. I'm going to go into the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. And I have a very extensive presentation from PowerPoint that I am going to share with you today for this conversation. Now, I have it up on the screen, but I got one more button to push, and now you should be seeing the presentation, and I'm going to shrink myself down so I'm occupying just a small corner of this PowerPoint presentation. This PowerPoint presentation is a little bit long. I put my foot in it when I prepared it. I began preparing it a year ago, and I have worked on it over the course of many, many months. I've been working on it today, adding new components such as the new books, and I'm going to share it with you, my listening audience, today. So let's get ready to rumble. Now, what I have to do is create this page over here, and I have to take a little bit of this off the desktop, and let's go into it. I hope you don't mind. The viability of Pan-Africanism as a competitive global economic and political force. That's the theme for today. It's part of a larger classroom I was teaching, the Pan-African Sovereign Development course. I extended it to include Pan-African economics and investing for the future. So I encourage each and every one of you to write down that website, Pan-Africanstudy.com, HTTP, Pan-Africanstudy.com. Let's go into this. Centering the study of African people. This course is about challenging Eurocentric paradigms and traditional curricula. African studies places the experiences and perspectives of African people at the forefront of academic inquiry. And when we talk about establishing the themes of Pan-Africanism, these are a number of the people, present and the past, who have set out major themes of Pan-African curriculum. The future belongs to those who are best prepared to create that future today. Very, very important topic. We're going to be linking academics with civic engagement, meaning this is not just all study, this is not just all cerebral, this is real civil engagement. Encouraging scholars to engage with communities and address social and economic issues affecting African descended populations. Unless we can engage substantial strategies and actions with our studies, then we are engaging in cultural futility. So we got to be active. Very important. We're questioning knowledge and truth claims. That is the purpose of our study. Promoting a nuanced understanding of the role in African scholarship in shaping societal narratives and challenging dominant discourses. Our Pan-African world is no longer shaped around a fundamental Eurocentric narrative, and it's no longer shaped by people of European extraction. We have to critically keep that in mind. Marcus Garvey gives us key themes. He says we are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, because whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free our mind. Ashe. Pan-African studies incorporates various approaches, including, but not limited to, diaspora studies, examining the history and contemporary experiences of African people across the globe, including the Caribbean, Latin American, Europe, and the United States. And I would also add to that, including the people of Australopacifica. Very important. Cultural and religious studies, analyzing the diverse culture and religious traditions of African people, including art, music, literature, and spirituality. Gender and sexuality studies, investigating the intersections of gender and sexuality in the experience of African descended people. It also incorporates health and wellness, exploring the health disparities and wellness initiatives affecting African descended populations. And it also includes political and economic analysis, examining the historical and contemporary political and economic structures that have shaped the experiences of African people. So that is what our studies entail. The historical context of the Africans in the diaspora. African studies emerged in the late 1960s and early 1970s as a response to campus demands made by Black students and their allies. It drew inspiration from the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement, seeking to transform higher education by, one, addressing faculty and staff diversity, increasing representation of African descended scholars and staff in academia, two, altering traditional curricula, incorporating the experiences and perspectives of African people into the university canon, three, raising critical questions about knowledge production, challenging dominating narratives, and promoting more inclusive and nuanced understandings of history and culture. The historical context of Africans across the diaspora is varied. By exploring these themes, methodologies, and historical contexts, students of Pan-African studies gain a deeper understanding of the complex and dynamic nature of African people across the diaspora, as well as the discipline's role in facilitating life processes and promoting social change. Pan-Africanism and game theory competition. This is a very important part of today's lesson. Pan-Africanism has the potential to emerge as a significant economic force in the coming decades, driven by increased regional integration, a youthful population, and technological advancements. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, is established to enhance intra-African trade, and it is a pivotal initiative that could foster economic collaboration among African nations, potentially boosting GDP, gross population, GDP, gross development. What's the word GDP stands for? You know what I'm talking about. So no even trip on it. Gross domestic product, including gross domestic product for $3 trillion by 2030. That is from the African Union 2021. A question arises, how much of this forecasted $3 trillion in new economic activity does our strategic plan engage? We are in a global competition. Now we need to start claiming our proportional share. Going forward, the question arose how Pan-African leaders would be best to become deeply aware of the basic tenets of game theory. That's very important. Let's go into this game theory. Who will rule the next 500 years? Game theory is a mathematical framework for analyzing strategic interactions among rational decision makers. While there are various concepts and models within game theory, some of the basic tenets include, but are not limited to, number one, players. Decision makers in the game can be individuals, groups, or organizations. Two, strategies. Possible actions that players can take in the game. Each player chooses strategies based on their self-interest, preferences, and other players' expected actions. Payoffs. The outcomes that result from the combination of strategies chosen by the players. Payoffs can represent utility, profit, or any other measure of success. Information. The knowledge players have about the game, including available strategies and payoffs. This can vary from complete information, where all the players know everything, to incomplete information, where some aspects are unknown. Equilibrium, a state in which players have chosen optimal strategies, given the strategies chosen by others. The most well-known concept of equilibrium in game theory is the Nash equilibrium, where no player benefits by changing their strategy unilaterally. These tenets form the foundation of analyzing and understanding strategic interactions in various fields, including economics, political science, and biology. Overview of our Pan-African course curriculum. Number one, African history. So very, very important. As Malcolm X said, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Two, African American history. Three, Caribbean and Latin American diaspora. African literature and arts. The sociology of race and ethnicity. Political movements and activism. Research methods in Africana studies. Ethical considerations in Africana research. Africa Rising, steering the Pan-African future. This is very important. Africa Rising. Pan-Africanism, 11 keys are shaping the future. Number one, the demographic potential of the world's youngest population. Two, natural resource abundance equals a 2,000-year supply. I want you to let that simmer in for a while. 2,000 years of resources at current usage rate exist under African soils. The world's fastest growing middle class and consumer markets. The global influence of our captivating cultural expressions. The role of the African Union in a changing global order. And at this particular point, we have to accept that the African Union is grossly understaffed, underfunded, and thus incapable of serving as an adequate political entity to carry Pan-African ambitions forward. It could be upgraded, but it is by far quite inadequate at this point. Monetizing Africa's biodiversity and indigenous cultures. Traditional African medicine in the global wellness economy future, very important. Building the African Free Trade Area upon a rapidly expanding transportation infrastructure. Number 9, rapid societal digitization and the expansion of technical innovation. And Pan-Africanism as a sanctuary amidst glowing global insecurity and, I would say, instability. Integration of large regional blocks into functioning federated states. Now we can see a map there. This is the map of Africa to 2030. And we see that the regions have been consolidating. So there's actually far fewer than the 54 or 55 states of the current African Union. This is what the map will be looking like. We already see the alliance of Sahel states has recently begun, it's been birthed. And we are on the eve of the East African Community Federation. What are we prepared to do? Great things. African history is alive and dynamic. A people without a knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots, said Marcus Garvey. We do talk about here, we actually went through this slide a little bit earlier, so I'm just going to skip right through this. We talk about pre-colonial history, colonial and post-colonial Africa. We really must focus much more on post-colonial Africa. Hopefully, the post-colonial Africa will not be determined by ongoing neo-colonialism. Major historical figures and movements. We talk about the impacts of the transatlantic slave trade and what that did to our continent. Now, I think I'm in a part of the lecture that has not yet been completely developed. But I do have other parts of it that have been developed. The SADC Regional Strategic Indicative Development Plan, RISDP. This is 2020 to 2030. So we are in the beginning stages of this plan. The combined population of the Southern African Development Community, SADC, member states for 2024 is 400.24 million people living within 16 nations. They are developing a 10-year strategic plan. The RISDP 2020 to 2030 is a comprehensive 10-year plan with clear strategic direction and milestones to guide regional integration and development, including economic integration, promoting trade and investment among member states to enhance economic growth, infrastructure development, improving transport, energy, and communication infrastructure to facilitate regional connectivity, social development, addressing health, education, and social welfare to improve the quality of life for citizens, governance and institutional capacity, strengthening the institutions and governance frameworks to support effective implementation of the strategic plan, and sustainable development, incorporating environmental sustainability into current and future development initiatives. Now, I want to just take a moment here to check and see if anybody is talking to us. We do want to be polite to our listening audience. We say greetings to you. If you are with us today on YouTube, you are welcome, and we are happy to be with you. I'm going to double check the Rumble right here, and I don't see anyone at all is saying anything to me on Rumble. So on the Rumble, hopefully we will be joined by you, our listening audience. But for right now, I'm not seeing you there. And it is what it is. We do what we do. We are what we are. But I'm really hoping you will at the least, hit the like button. Now, I am asking you today to commit, to get on board, to take this all to a whole new level. But if I cannot convince you to at least hit the like button on Rumble, to participate, to type in a few words, just type in the phrase Pan-Africanism. And what does it mean to you? This is going forward with or without you, with or without me. If you and I never make any move into Pan-Africanism, it still has to go forward. It really does. So we do the best we can. Sometimes the best we do is still not going to be good enough. I'm going to go forward. We are now talking about the Confederation of Sahel States. The Confederation of Sahel States was officially announced as born on Saturday, July 6, 2024. This date marks the transformation of the Alliance of Sahel States into a full-fledged confederation as confirmed by various sources, including the summit held by the leaders of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. So there you see in the red is the Alliance of Sahel States. Confederation actually consists of the same 5 states minus Mauritania and Chad, but it is anticipated that the alliance will join the Confederation, that Mauritania and Chad will be joining. So that's where that's at. The Confederation of Sahel States was officially announced as born on Saturday, July 6, 2024. This date marks the transformation of the Alliance of Sahel States into a full-fledged confederation, as confirmed by various sources, including the summit held by the leaders of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso on July 6, 2024. Alliance of Sahel States, the G5, includes Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, with Chad and Mauritania in the larger alliance, with a combined landmass of 2,780,159 square kilometers. The Confederation of Sahel States surpasses Algeria as Africa's largest nation. So the trivia books have been changed now. Africa's largest nation is no longer Sudan. That changed over a decade ago when South Sudan broke off. It is no longer now Algeria. It is now the Confederation of Sahel States, the CSS. Very important information. The Confederation of Sahel States, also known as the Alliance of Sahel States, formed between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, originated as a mutual defense pact created following the 2023 Nigerian crisis. The West African political bloc, ECOWAS, threatened to intervene militarily to resolve civilian rule after a coup in Niger earlier that year. But that plan was overridden by regional leaders across the area. The Sahel G5 includes Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, along with Chad and Mauritania in the larger alliance. The alliance has taken decisions to diminish the influence and control of France over its currency, resources, territory, diplomatic relations, and trade, and has been seeking new arrangements to fill the vacuum left by the exits of France and the United States, especially the security vacuum with the exit of France and the United States. They were supposed to be in these nations fighting against the terrorists that were coming ultimately from Libya, but they were very inadequate at the job. And when they finally realized they weren't going to do any better, they just threw them out. Turning to new alliances, Russia has stepped in a large measure to assist, and that's good. That's good for the Sahel states. The alliance and Togo are working to establish an interconnected customs area in line with the African Continental Free Trade Area. This will allow landlocked AES countries to use Togo's Lomé port without large tariffs. The use of the ports has been a source of tension between the alliance of Sahel states and the coastal countries in ECOWAS. The impact of the demographic dividend. I used the online tool Worldometer to ascertain certain population figures for August 2024. So these numbers could be updated by 8 months or so, but they are going to be fairly close. The African Union, 55 member states, current total population, 1.520, 1,520,203,774. And that has now grown to 1.55 billion. This compares to the world's largest national populations. India, number one in the world with 1.452 million, and China with 1.42 billion people. So India, 1.45 billion, China, 1.42 billion. That's the numbers. The former colonial and imperious areas include the EU, 745 million, the US, 346 million, and Japan, 127 million people, and shrinking. African Union's 2030 population is projected to increase to 1.783 billion people. The combined EAC population as of August 2024 is 478,659,239. This is the Confederation of this is the complete East African community population. This is projected to grow to more than 560 million by 2030. The combined SADC population, excluding the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Tanzania, which are included in the East African community population, is 255,702,963. This is projected to grow to more than 300 million by 2030. That's for the SADC region. Total for the three-nation Sahel Federation is 75,370,189, with the G5 population at 100,962,962,000, projected to exceed 118 million by 2030. Bear with me as I'm struggling with putting the decimal point in the right place, but you can see on the screen exactly what I am discussing. Foreign direct investing across our motherland. Agroeconomics. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank, said the following: the next generation of billionaires and millionaires in Africa will be farmers. Telecommunications, media, and technology. These sectors gain prominence driven by tech innovation and the trend of global tech companies increasing their presence in Africa. FinTech, which stands for financial technologies, is expected to benefit from economic growth, urbanization, and a global move toward resource-backed central bank digital currencies. Due to rapid growth, infrastructure investments are crucial for Africa's future, including transportation, energy, and housing construction. Very important. Although commodity price fluctuation poses challenges, oil and gas remain significant contributors to Africa's economy, with countries like Nigeria and Angola as major players in this field. Consumer products, manufacturing, and retail. This sector is driven by the demands of an urbanizing population's rising income. As Africa's economy grows, manufacturing plays a key role in industries like textiles, food processing, pharmaceuticals, and auto manufacturing. Foreign direct investment in wellness. The global wellness economy reached $5.5 trillion in annual activity in 2022, predicted to reach $8.5 trillion in 2027, reflecting an 8.6% annual growth. The wellness economy will thus only expand its share of consumer spending and the global economy over this period, growing at a robust annual rate substantially higher than the projected global GDP growth of 5.1%, that from IMF forecast. And there you see me with Chebet Ngok, founder of Harriet's Botanicals, based in Nairobi, Kenya. And here's what she had to say about the growth of the global wellness economy. Investing here is definitely the thing to do right now. The West has run out of ideas, and Africans are coming out of the slumber of colonialism. There are many small companies with big ideas looking for capital investment. My preference would be for diaspora Africans to come and reinvest in medicine, culture, music, etc., before the big guys sweep it all up. There is a business called Kajuju. This one is seeking an investor. This Somali lady is the founder of a 100% natural botanicals skincare line. That's Kajuju. But Harriet's Botanicals is also 100% natural botanicals, but it's for internal medicine. But we have challenges. There can be no greater challenge than the curse of infant and maternal mortality. The global infant mortality rate has decreased from 65 deaths per 1,000 live births in 1990 to 29 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2018. Annual infant deaths have declined from 8.7 million in 1990 to 4.0 million in 2018. The risk of a child dying before completing the first year of age was highest In the World Health Organization's Africa region, 52 deaths per 1,000 live births, over 7 times higher than that in the World Health Organization European region, 7 deaths per 1,000 live births. In most high-income countries, maternal mortality is very, very low, with the average rate in European Union being 8 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. In some countries, such as Poland, Italy, and Sweden, the rate is even lower at 3 to 4 per 100,000. The CDC's National Vital Statistics System reports the national maternal mortality rate, which is the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. For Blacks in the US, the rate is double that of whites. The countries with the highest maternal mortality per 100,000 live births are the following. Number 1 in the world, South Sudan, 1,223 women dying during the childbirthing process. Chad, second at 1,063. Nigeria at 1,047. Central African Republic at 835. Guinea-Bissau at 725. Liberia, 652. Somalia, 621. Afghanistan at 620. Lesotho at 566, Guinea at 555, and Benin at 523 deaths per 100,000 live births. Now we're talking about the viability of Pan-Africanism as a global competitive force and political force. I have written a number of books that I do encourage people to look at, to read, and organize around. I published the book Forged by Fire in November 2023. Futurenomics, published in 2018, the month of February. In February 2025, February 2025, I published The African Future, The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. That came out in 2000. Africa Rising came out in early 2017, I think it was. The Blackest Soil Africa Can Feed the World came out in May 2020. Standard Omission. Greek medical science is descended from African medical science. And that is actually not the subtitle. The subtitle is African Scientific Roots of Greco-Roman Medicine. But this book came out in late February, might have been March or April of 2025. And lastly, Pan-African books, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6. I read from that book today, talking about game theory. So that's where I teach you game theory. I'm going to open up that book right now, World War 5 and 6, Disaster Preparedness. And I'm going to skip forward 2 chapters on game theory. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read from it. The following quote comes from Thomas C. Schelling. He writes, and I say, game theory is a way of thinking about strategic interactions that can help us to understand everything from economics to politics to everyday life. Game theory is a powerful tool for understanding the dynamics of conflict and cooperation. It helps us to see the world through the eyes of others and to anticipate their actions. I write, put me in the game, coach. When it comes to practical means of comprehending the impactful changes happening in international politics, it is best that we have effective tools for analyzing what are often seemingly disconnected, disparate events. In my studies of global affairs over recent decades, I finally came across the idea of game theory as such a tool for analysis. It took some time to completely comprehend the critical importance of this interaction, response, and strategic positioning system, which has become formalized as game theory. Skipping forward, here is how the application of game theory in international politics was explained in World Politics, a quarterly journal of international relations. They wrote, and I quote, "Game theory is elaborated as a theoretical approach to international politics by contrasting it with metaphorical and analogical uses of games. Because it embraces a diversity of models, game theory is especially useful for capturing the most important contextual features of the international system that affects prospects for international cooperation. Through a discussion of the relation among and extension of different game theory models, the versatility and scope of game theoretic approaches to international relations are demonstrated. Special attention is paid to the empirical issues of the international politics, which are raised by game theory and are analyzed in other articles in this symposium. I wrote throughout this year, I have shared a series of podcasts on the subject of game theory. Here is how I introduced the topic on one of my weekly broadcasts, Tech and Future Talk. The more that we look into the strategic competition for control and domination for the next 500 plus years of planetary domination or planetary dominion, we increasingly come to the conclusion that it is time for the reversal of the positions of those who colonized and their former victims. To win the game requires that competing groups are aware of the nature of the contest, its rules, strategies, and ultimate consequences. Africa is rising. We got next. Naturally, I've amassed a large folder of writings, reports, and analyses on this topic of game theory. Volumes of insights and analyses make up this collection. It is literally the subject of higher education course study, especially within the elite level graduate university systems serving national leadership. I believe it is due time that those of us who wish to comprehend global competition, strategic positioning in international relations, war and peace, as well as business competition, understand the vital importance of game theory toward global affairs of the past, present, and most importantly, the future that we would seek to master. I'm going to read one more paragraph, and then I'm going to tell you about 30 keys to understanding game theory. This is from Tshilidzi, Tshilidzi Marwala. He's from South Africa, and he talks of his application of game theory in international politics. He wrote, "Game theory has become an indispensable tool in international politics, offering valuable insights into the complex and strategic decision-making processes that govern the interactions between nations, international organizations, and non-state actors. As a mathematical framework, for understanding strategic behavior and predicting outcomes. Game theory allows scholars and policymakers to model and analyze the myriads of factors that influence the actions and choices of actors on the international stage. This chapter explores the role of game theory in international politics, highlighting its key concepts, applications, and contributions to our understanding of global dynamics. Additionally, we discuss the potential limitations and challenges of applying game theory in the intricate and ever-changing landscape of international politics. So then we get to what is game theory? Comprehensive understanding. We have these 30 keys to understanding game theory in global political, economic, and social competition. Number one, games. Structured scenarios where players make strategic decisions. These can be cooperative or non-cooperative and adversarial. Number two, players. These are the decision makers in the game, which can include individuals, organizations, or countries. Number three, strategies. The action plans that players can choose from may involve cooperation or competition. Strategies are aimed at achieving the player's objectives. Number four, strategic interdependence. Game theory assumes that players' payoffs are contingent with others' strategies, highlighting the interconnectedness of global competition. Number five, rational decision making. Game theory assumes that all players, individuals, nations, and organizations are acting rationally to maximize their self-interested payoffs. It points that players strive to maximize their payoffs, assuming logical behavior, which informs global political, economic, and social interactions. Number six, payoffs. The outcomes of the games are based on the chosen strategies of the players, often represented in measurable numerical format. These quantifiable outcomes directly result from the strategies they and others prefer. The payoff matrix, which in my mind sparks the idea of a vision board, the payoff matrix describes a visual representation of the possible outcomes and payoffs for each player, essential for analyzing strategic interactions in global competitions. The Nash equilibrium. Number seven, the concept of Nash equilibrium, named after John Nash, describes a stable state where no player can improve their payoff by unilaterally changing their strategy, applicable to global competitions. This concept is crucial in predicting stable outcomes in competitive scenarios, wherein this often described game situation, no player can improve their payoff by unilaterally changing their strategy, given the dynamics created by the strategies of others. Number eight, the prisoner's dilemma. This classic game illustrates the tension between individual and collective interests, demonstrating how cooperation can be suboptimal in global competitions. This dilemma is a classic demonstration of the Nash equilibrium, illustrating how two rational individuals might fail to interact, even if it appears that it is in their best interest to do so. Number nine, dominant strategy. An optimal strategy for a player, regardless of what the other players do. If a player has a dominant strategy, they will always choose it. 10, zero-sum games. Situations where one player's gain is exactly another's loss. meaning that the total payoff remains constant. 11. Non-zero-sum games. Engagements where all players can benefit or suffer together, facilitating cooperation and mutual gain. Number 12, not competitive, cooperative games. Scenarios where players can collectively negotiate and form coalitions to achieve better outcomes. Non-cooperative games. These are strategic games where players make decisions independently, often leading to competition rather than collaboration. Number 14, mixed strategy. A strategy where a player randomizes over possible moves, often used when no pure strategy is dominant. Players choose between possible moves in this scenario according to a probability distribution. Again, that was mixed strategy. Number 15, extensive form games. This describes games that show the sequential nature of decisions, often depicted in tree diagrams. Number 16, experimental evidence. This term describes laboratory experiments and field studies that test and refine game theory predictions, informing the development of more effective strategies in global competitions. 16, experimental evidence. This describes, I just read that. Number 17, simultaneous versus sequential games. Simultaneous games are played without knowledge of the other player's choices, where sequential games are played in turns, allowing players to observe previous actions. 18, repeated games. Here we have situations where the same game is played multiple times, allowing for strategies to evolve based on past interactions. Repeated games are played more than once, allowing for strategy evolution and enhanced outcomes beneficial to a player's reputation. 19, game forms. Various game forms, such as the Traveler's Dilemma, can be applied to analyze real-life situations, including global economic and political interactions. Number 20, evolutionary game theory. Applies principles of game theory to evolving populations in biology, economics, and social sciences. Evolutionary dynamics game theory can be used to study the transformation of strategies and outcomes over time, providing insights into the dynamics of global competitions. 21, information asymmetry occurs when one player has more or better information than the others, significantly impacting strategy and outcomes. Incomplete or uneven information distribution among players will significantly impact strategic decision-making in global competitions. Now, take a short pause here. We're gotten up to 20 through 21 of 30 of these game theory rules. And as you can tell, it does get pretty complex. Now, we're still going forward. Let me double check here. Why is this here stuck? 1 second. I am going to update this page here. All right, it is updated. And 1 second for the ads to get off the page. Recently, Rumble began the advertising, and it is what it is. So we keep going forward. We are continuing to talk about game theory. 22, signaling. Players may use signals, such as threats or concessions, to influence others' strategies and achieve desired outcomes in global competitions. 23, coalition forming. Forming temporary alliances or coalitions can strategically respond to global competitions, allowing players to pool resources and increase their bargaining power. We can see this now with the formation of BRICS as an alternative to the NATO response. 24, mechanism design. This field relates to game theory that focuses on designing systems or institutions that align individual incentives with overall social or national objectives. 25, bargaining theory. A way to describe a branch of game theory that studies how players negotiate and reach agreements, often under conditions of conflict or competition. In this situation, players are forced to negotiate to reach mutually beneficial agreements. 26, backward induction. This process explains how competitors, such as companies, can compete cutthroat steadily, raising prices to gain market share. Backward induction. Number 27, time inconsistency. The potential for players to renege on commitments or change strategies over time can determine cooperation and stability in global competitions. 28, the Cournot competition. This economic model describes rival companies competing on output quantity independently and simultaneously without collusion, thus illustrating the dynamics of global market competition. Number 29, application in international relations. Game theory can be applied to understand conflicts, alliances, trade, negotiations, and other strategic interactions between nations. And number 30, contextual factors. Game theory should be applied in consideration of contextual factors such as cultural, institutional, and technological differences. Better to understand global political, economic, and social competitions. I summarize with the following. And the chapter goes on, because the chapter we have to ask, well, what do we do with this? Game theory is a fascinating and complex field that provides valuable insights into strategic decision making in various contexts, including global politics, economics, and social competition. Understanding these concepts can provide useful insights into the complexities of global interactions. Game theory helps model and predict behaviors in international relations, trade negotiations, competitive markets, and war and peace. Now, you were probably just overwhelmed. In fact, I looked at my numbers before talking that whole section, 30 keys to understanding game theory. And then I looked at the numbers and I had lost about almost half my audience for today. This is why we're losing. That's it. That's why we're losing. Because it's seemingly so complex that very few people, very, very few people want to engage. We're going to engage nonetheless with the idea that we, as African seed, are most capable of coming out in the optimal position. In other words, we're going to win. We aim to win. Is there much more I can say about that? We're going to win. We aim to win. We aim to dominate. And we aim to ultimately come together, come forward from the winner's position to ultimately let's dominate the planet for 500 years and more. Some extremely doubt that this is possible. Some believe this will come from divine providence, that a master creator of the universe will snap his finger. The first will be last, the last will be first. You know that superstition. But we're going to have to figure out something, and we are going to have to figure it out soon. If you are interested in learning more, I'm going to invite you to join our Pan-African study course. And it's a beautiful course, panafricanstudy.com. Where it at? It's up here on my desktop here somewhere. Panafricanstudy.com. Let me put it up here. Pan HTTP Pan African Study.com. I'm going to invite you to join the Pan African Study course. Join it formally, join it for real. Don't dibby around on this one. Don't fool around, because the consequences of missing out and losing is everything. Is everything. Eddie writes a question, and he did this one to the side. He asked the question, did the baby boomers destroy the economy for their children? I would say yeah. Did Generation X destroy the economy for their younger brothers and sisters, their children? I would say yeah. Did the great generation who had achieved the highest that we had ever known, did they allow for the destruction of the economy of the community for their children? Yeah. Yeah. We all have a hand in this ongoing destruction. Now, there is only one question. What are we going to do about it? No room for blame. No room for blame. Just fix it. That's a good question. I'm not going to hide from your question, Brother Eddie, because it is a great question that should be asked of every generation. We all had a hand in its destruction. The others rose, the outsiders rose upon our destruction of our own possibilities. And now we have to ask the question, what are we going to do about it? I did pull up a lot of different material for today. I'm going to just share some of this. This is from Britannica.com. And I'm going to share it. This is about game theory. I should share this with Eddie as well, because I believe Eddie will pay attention. But I may not be correct. I shared the Pan-African study, my classroom. I'm sharing the Britannica link. I put it up on the Facebook page. I'm putting it up on YouNow.org. Where you is. Facebook, reload, and plant it up there. I'm going to put it up on my Facebook. I've put it up on Facebook once. I'm putting it up there a second time. So everyone will have access to it. Come on, computer, please stop acting so doggone slow. Put it up there. And lastly, I'm going to put it up on my StreamYard page. So this is enough. We had a very low audience for today, which suggests people really are not going to change. Luckily for me, I have recently found a young group of brothers in East Africa. And it's a perfect situation for me. I have another group that is in Ghana, where I will be arriving there this October. It is a perfect situation for us to collaborate, cooperate together. An excellent, excellent, excellent situation. So I am going to continue to develop these resources while bringing resources to these two groups of people. It is very critical and necessary that somebody amongst our group, and I am by no means the only person, somebody from our situation should be setting up long-term strategies for members of our group in other positions around the world. So I'm going to do the best I can, always searching to do even better on this long road to African sovereignty, sustainable development, to collaboration and cooperation among those of African descent around the world, where this all really, really does matter. So on that note, I want to thank you all for tuning in today to LIB Radio, LIB TV, to livingintheblack.com. And I hope you found it to be useful, the presentation that we shared with you. This is your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livingintheblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you. On your favorite, we aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livingintheblack.com. Peace to all of you.